The sound of fabric-breaking flashing lights were everywhere. The cameras clicked like 1,000 tiny hammers tapping on glass. Ana de Armas stood at the edge of the red carpet, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and smiled, just like she had been trained to do. But inside, she felt a strange heaviness she couldn't shake. Tonight wasn't just another premiere, it was the biggest event of the year. And she was wearing a one-of-a-kind silk gown, the kind that looked like moonlight stitched into fabric. The kind that made everyone turn to look. What Ana didn't know was that one single thread near her hip had come loose. She stepped forward, waving gently at the crowd. The cameras adored her, the press called her a vision. And in that moment, she felt both seen and completely alone. Then it happened. So small, so fast. She didn't understand it at first. A soft ripping sound, barely louder than a whisper. She froze. The fabric had split, just enough for it to matter. Right along her upper leg. Nothing too revealing, but just enough to make people look. And look they did. One flash. Two. A wave of silence. A gasp from someone behind the velvet rope. Her eyes widened, and she instinctively pulled her hand to cover the tear. Her face went pale. Time seemed to stop. For a moment, Ana wasn't the glamorous star everyone had come to see. She was a human being, exposed, vulnerable, alone under the judgment of 1,000 lenses. People didn't know what to do. They just stared and stared. No one moved to help. No one looked away. Her fingers trembled on the edge of the gown. Someone giggled in the back. A camera zoomed in. Her throat tightened. She could feel the tears pushing against her pride. And then Keanu Reeves stepped forward. He hadn't walked the carpet yet. Had been speaking quietly with a crew member. Behind a pillar, out of sight. But as soon as he saw her freeze, saw her hand cover that tear, saw the silence turn cruel, he moved, not rushed, not loud, just calm. He walked up beside her, removed his long black coat without saying a word, and wrapped it gently around her shoulders, letting the ends fall down and cover the tear. Ow. She didn't even look at him at first. She just stared down at the ground, frozen. His voice was soft, steady. "You're okay," he said. "Take a breath. I'm right here." His tone wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was the first real human sound she'd heard in what felt like ours. Ana finally turned her face toward him. Her eyes were full of unshed tears. Her lips trembled, trying to find the right thing to say. But Keanu didn't need her to say anything. He simply stood beside her, shielding her from the cameras with his presence alone. Someone from the event staff rushed over with a sewing kit. Another handed her a backup wrap. Slowly, the crowd shifted. The whispers turned to silence. And then, to something gentler, someone clapped softly, then another. It wasn't for a performance. It wasn't for the dress. It was for the kindness. For the moment of dignity that had just unfolded in front of them. Keanu helped her off the carpet, walking with her through the side entrance, not as a man rescuing a woman, but as a friend walking beside someone who needed to breathe. Inside, away from the noise, she sat down on a quiet bench in the hallway. Her shoulders dropped. Her hands were still shaking. Keanu didn't hover. He didn't say too much. He just waited beside her in silence. "Why did you do that?" she finally asked. He looked over, thoughtful. "Because I've been there," he said. "Not with a dress, but with the feeling." She blinked. "What feeling? The one where the world is watching, and you feel like disappearing?" The words hit her harder than she expected, because that was exactly what she'd felt. Embarrassment, not shame, just the wish to be invisible for a moment. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet. "You don't owe me anything," Keanu replied. "But if it helps, you weren't the one who should have been embarrassed." Out there, the people who stared and laughed were... She felt a tear escape her eye, "And you were the only one who looked at me like I wasn't broken." Keanu gave her a small, genuine smile. "You're not broken, Ana. You just had a moment. And that's allowed." For the first time all night, Ana allowed herself to cry. Not because of the dress, but because someone had seen her not as a celebrity, not as a symbol, but as a person. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Something quiet, something unspoken. A thread of respect, of truth, a beginning. The silence after applause the next morning. Anna sat on the edge of her hotel bed, staring at the coat folded neatly beside her. Keanu's coat. It still smelled faintly like cedar and something warmer like time spent outdoors. Outdoors. She had slept. Little, the night kept replaying in her mind like a loop. The flash of the cameras, the sound of the tear, the weight of judgment, but also the moment Keanu stepped in, not to save her, just to stand beside her. That was the difference. Didn't make her feel small. He made her feel human. Her phone buzzed again. The headline was everywhere. Keanu shields Anna from embarrassing moment with quiet act of kindness. He didn't ask questions. He just gave her his coat. A lesson in humility from Hollywood's gentlest soul. She closed the phone. Part of her felt relief. Part of her felt exposed in a different way, because people weren't just talking about the dress, or talking about her breakdown, her eyes, her tears, and her silence afterward. Some praised her grace. Others dissected her pain like it was a public puzzle to solve. And deep down, she hated how much it bothered her. The knock at the door startled her. Soft, polite. She hesitated, wiped her eyes, then opened it. Keanu stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Morning," he said gently. She blinked. "How did your assistant let me know what floor? Figured you hadn't had breakfast." Anna looked at the cup he offered, then at his face. Calm, sincere, not pushy. She stepped aside. "Come in." He walked in slowly, setting the coffee down on the little table near the window. She noticed he had a small brown paper bag, too. "Croissants," he added. "They're still warm." She gave a faint laugh. "You really know how to show up?" He shrugged. "I just remember what helped me when I felt like the world was too loud." They sat across from each other. She sipped the coffee, the silence not awkward but careful. "How did you learn to stay calm like that?" she asked after a while. Keanu leaned back in the chair, his gaze resting on the city skyline. "Years of learning what not to say," Anna tilted her head. "What do you mean when you lose people? You've been broken in ways no one sees. You start to understand that showing up quietly can be louder than any speech." His voice wasn't sad, just honest, eyes softened. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Keanu smiled without humor. "Haven't we all?" She looked down at her hands. "I think I forgot that I'm allowed to fall apart sometimes." "You are," he said. "You just need the right people around when it happens." Anna set the cup down. She looked at him. "Why are you being so kind to me?" He met her gaze without flinching. "Because you remind me of someone I knew." She carried the whole world on her shoulders, but never let anyone see her bend. Until one day she did, and no one knew what to do. "I promised myself that if I ever saw that again, I wouldn't stay silent." Anna's throat tightened. "Who was she?" He paused, then said quietly, "My sister." A silence fell, not empty full, of something deep and respectful. Anna reached across the table and gently placed her hand over his. "Thank you for trusting me with that." He nodded. The next hour passed with quiet conversation, laughter, and stillness. Something in her began to settle. Not because everything was fixed, but because someone had given her space to breathe without demanding she be strong. As Keanu stood to leave, she looked at him with gratitude. "I want to return your coat," she said, reaching for it. He smiled and held up a hand. "Keep it." "Why?" "Because it's not just a coat anymore. It's a reminder." "Of what?" "That you were never alone." Asterisk. Later that afternoon, Anna sat in the studio lounge. The director of the film they were shooting entered, along with some producers. They talked about schedules, reshoots, and press. No one mentioned the red carpet, not directly, but she felt the glances. The unspoken concern. Keanu arrived shortly after, dressed simply as always. Jeans, black shirt, soft eyes. They were supposed to rehearse a scene together, an intense one, full of conflict. Her character would break down. His character would. Listen, but before they started, The director approached her. "Anna," he said gently, "you okay to shoot today?" "We can delay if I'm fine," she said, more sharply than she meant. The room went still. She saw Keanu glance at her, not with judgment but awareness. Then, quietly, he stepped beside her and whispered, "You don't have to prove anything." Her shoulders dropped. "I know," she whispered back, "but I want to." The director nodded. "Let's go slow then. Just rehearse." Anna stood across from Keanu on the soundstage. The lights warmed, the cameras prepped, a script in. Her hand trembled slightly. "Action," someone called, and suddenly something shifted. Anna didn't read the lines. She lived them. Her voice cracked at the right time. Her tears came naturally. And Keanu, he listened. Not just as an actor, but as someone who had seen her real pain. The whole crew grew silent when the scene ended. No one said anything for a moment. Then, soft claps. Anna wiped her face and looked at Keanu. "You didn't say your last line," she said. He smiled. "I didn't need to. Your silence said everything." She stared at him for a long moment. For the first time in days, she smiled. Not because she had survived the red carpet, but because she had been seen, heard, and respected without needing to be perfect. And she was starting to believe maybe that was enough. More than just silence, days that followed moved slowly but gently. Anna had returned to set each morning with a quiet strength. There was no press conference, no apology video, no need for explanation. Keanu's coat had become something more than fabric. It had become armor. Not because it hid her, but because it reminded her that kindness could be louder than cruelty. She kept it draped on the back of her chair during rehearsals. She didn't wear it. She didn't have to. Its presence was enough. But still. Hadn't quite figured out how to say thank you in the way she wanted to. Not yet. One afternoon, the scene called for her to stand in the rain. Not real rain, but the kind made by machines. Cold, harsh, relentless. Her character was supposed to scream, to break, to fall to her knees in the downpour. They rehearsed it twice. It wasn't working. Anna's body was doing the right things. Her voice hit the right marks. But something in her wasn't connecting. The director rubbed his temple. "It's good, Anna. But it's not there yet. It needs more truth." Anna stepped off the soaked pavement and grabbed a towel. Her hands shook slightly. She knew what was missing. She just didn't know how to reach it. Keanu walked over, holding an umbrella above them both. "You're pushing too hard," he said softly. "I have to," she replied. "They're all watching, so what?" he said. "They watched you break on the carpet, and still, here you are." She looked up at him. "You're not afraid of being seen, are you?" Keanu hesitated. "I am. Just don't let it stop." "Me?" She nodded slowly. "What do you think the scene really needs?" "Your truth," he said. "Not the characters. Yours." She looked away, toward the stage where fake rain kept falling, pattering against empty space. Then she turned back. "Stay on the stage," she said. He blinked. "You sure?" "Yes," she whispered. "But not as the character. Just be." "There." He nodded once. The director agreed. "No problem. Keep the cameras rolling. Let her lead." Anna stepped back into the rain. This time she didn't think of the script. She thought of the night everything split, of the staring eyes, the silence, the moment she wanted to disappear, and the coat, and the man who didn't speak much but saw everything. She looked across the stage at him. He wasn't acting. He was just watching, and somehow that gave her permission to let go. Her knees hit the ground. Her hands reached upward. Her voice cracked not in performance, but in release. The rain soaked her completely, and when she looked up again, tears and water mixing on her face, Keanu was still there. He hadn't flinched. He simply stepped forward and knelt beside her. Not in the script, not planned. He placed one hand over hers. "You don't have to break alone," he said quietly. And she broke again, but this time. It was healing. When the scene ended, the crew stood in stunned silence. The director slowly removed his headset. "That was it," he said. "That's the one." Anna sat on the ground, water dripping from her eyelashes, heart pounding in her chest. Keanu sat beside her, not saying a word. The rest of the day blurred by. People praised her. The studio sent flowers. Producers called it raw brilliance. But none of it mattered more than the moment afterward when they sat together on a bench behind the studio, wrapped in warm towels, watching the sun break through gray clouds. "You were incredible," Keanu said, handing her a warm mug. Anna shook her head. "No, I was just honest. That's what made it incredible." She looked at him. "You never act like this world touches you. But it does, doesn't it?" Keanu didn't speak for a long moment. "I just try not to let it shape me into something I'm not." Anna studied his face. "I used to think I had to be perfect to be accepted. And now I think maybe I just need to be true." He nodded slowly. "Truth lasts longer than fame." She smiled. "You're full of quiet wisdom, aren't you?" He laughed. "Just quiet scars." Later that night, Anna opened her notebook. She hadn't written anything personal in months. But now her fingers moved on their own. "Dear world, you saw me break. And I thought that meant I lost. But maybe the real loss is pretending I never could." Man gave me his coat when I was cold with fear, not because he had to, because he chose to see me. And in doing that, he reminded me that silence can carry more strength than applause. So here I am. Not perfect. Not whole. You're true. And maybe that's enough for now. She closed the notebook, and just before she turned out the light, she reached over and draped the coat across her shoulders. Not because she needed to hide, but because she finally felt safe enough to be seen. Echoes of the spotlight following week brought a shift neither Anna nor Keanu could have predicted. After the rain scene went viral on social media, an unplanned leak from someone on the crew, the public wasn't talking about her dress anymore. They were talking about her performance. Raw, emotional, vulnerable. Thousands of comments poured in. Most of them supportive. Fans wrote things like, "This is why we love her," and you can feel every word even in silence. But not everyone was kind. Some called it calculated. Some said she had staged her breakdown for sympathy. Others questioned Keanu's intentions. Wondering aloud why a man so private was suddenly so visible, Anna tried not to read the comments. She really did. But one night alone in her hotel room, she scrolled and scrolled and scrolled until her heart ached with a dull heavens. One comment stayed with her. Maybe she's not acting at all. Maybe she's just always falling apart. She put the phone down, closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she didn't feel brave. The next morning on set, she arrived early. Too early. The sky was still gray with sleep. Only a few crew members moved quietly through the studio. She sat on a bench outside stage 3, arms wrapped around her knees. Breathing slowly, she didn't hear Keanu approach. He simply sat beside her. He asked softly. Anna shook her head. "People say they want the truth," she said quietly. "But they don't know what to do with it when they see it." Keanu handed her the tea. "That's because most people only understand truth when it's wrapped in something safe. Your truth wasn't safe. It was honest." She looked down at the ground. "I don't know how to keep showing up if people are just going to keep tearing me apart." Keanu took a slow breath. "Anna, the only way through is forward, even if your knees shake." She smiled faintly. "You always say things like that." "Because someone once said them to me," he replied. She turned toward him, curious. "Who?" He stared ahead, his voice low. "My drama teacher. When I was 16, I froze in front of a small class during a scene. Everyone laughed. The room couldn't breathe, thought maybe acting wasn't for me. But she found me in the hallway, sat beside me for an hour, never told me to go back in. Just waited until I was ready. And when I did go back, she didn't say 'I told you so.' She just nodded." Double quotes. Anna was quiet for a moment. What happened to her? Keanu's face shifted, gentle sorrow settling in. "She passed a few years ago. Cancer, I never got to say thank you properly. So now, I try to show up the way she did. For people who feel like they're not enough. Anna blinked back a tear. Well, you're doing a good job, he smiled. You're still here. That's what matters. Later that afternoon, a talk show invitation arrived for both of them. Live interview, one night only. Hollywood's most private actor and its most fragile star, Anna read the subject line 3 times. They called me fragile, she muttered. Keanu looked over her shoulder. That's not an insult. Fragility means you feel. The world needs more people who feel. Still, she said, it's not exactly empowering. He leaned against the wall. Then let's go. Not to defend ourselves, just to be ourselves. Anna hesitated. You really want to go on live TV? He grinned. I've jumped off buildings in movies. This can't be worse. She laughed. That's debatable. The night of the interview arrived faster than expected. The studio lights were blinding. The host was charming but eager to stir emotions. Anna, he said at one point, there was a moment when the entire world saw you fall apart. What was going through your mind when your dress tore? Anna paused. The silence stretched. Everyone leaned forward, and then she smiled. I thought, I might disappear, she said honestly. But someone made sure I didn't. The host turned. To Keanu, you've always stayed away from the spotlight, Keanu. Why step in now? Keanu looked at Anna before answering, because sometimes silence speaks louder than applause. And sometimes someone just needs a coat. Not a rescue, not attention. Just a coat. The room was still. The host tried again. And what do you say to people who think all this was staged? Anna leaned forward. I'd say pain isn't something you rehearse. And healing isn't a performance. If people saw something real, that's because it was real, Keanu added softly. Truth doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up. And with that, the interview ended. As they left the studio, the air outside was cool, quiet, honest. Anna turned to Keanu, her heels. Clicking softly on the sidewalk, thank you for going with me. He nodded. You didn't need me, he said. But I wanted to be there. She stopped walking. Keanu, yeah? She hesitated. Then stepped forward and hugged him. Not because she was falling, but because she was standing and didn't. Want to do it alone? He hugged her back. No words, just warmth. And for the first time in a long time, cameras felt far away. They were just 2 people, under a quiet sky. Not actors, not headlines, just human. The letter no one saw Anna. Didn't speak much the next day. Not out of sadness, not out of fear, but because something inside her had shifted again this time. Felt deeper, calmer. Not everything was fixed. The world still buzzed with noise. There were still critics, still rumors, still articles, pulling quotes apart like threads in a tapestry. But something was different now, because for the first time, she wasn't trying to outrun the noise. She was learning how to walk through it. The studio's executive office called a meeting. Private. Serious tone. The assistant's voice over the phone had been polite. The tight Anna and Keanu walked in together. 3 men and 1 woman sat at a long glass table, laptops open, phones buzzing. A monitor on the wall played scenes from their film. The head executive stood and smiled tightly. We just want to talk strategy, he said. Your interview was powerful, emotional. It's making waves, trending in over 40 countries. Anna blinked. And that's a problem. Not a problem, the woman across the table said quickly. Just something we want to shape. Keanu leaned forward slightly. Shape how? We're thinking a campaign, one of the men said. Something heartfelt. The strength of silence, that's what marketing's calling it. We make Anna the face of resilience. Keanu the face of quiet support. It's beautiful, polished, clean. Anna stared at the table. Something about the word polished felt wrong. Another executive chimed in, flipping a tablet toward her. You'll speak at 3 events, maybe a partnership with a mental health brand. Red carpets? Interviews? You'll be a symbol. Anna's hands curled slightly. A symbol of what? Vulnerability, he said. But in a way that inspires. She looked at Keanu. His face was unreadable, but his eyes told her everything. He saw what she saw. They weren't interested in her healing. They were interested in her story, the version they could control. I'm not a brand, she said quietly. Of course not, the woman said too quickly. But you're a voice, a beautiful one, and the world needs voices. Anna's voice hardened just a little. Then maybe the world also needs the truth, not the version that fits a schedule. The room paused. Keanu gently pushed the tablet. Back across the table? She's not a headline, he said softly. We're just offering an opportunity, one man said. Anna stood. Thank you, she said. But I already have one. It's called being a person. She turned and walked out. Keanu followed. That night, Anna wrote something she didn't plan to publish, not for press, not for the internet, just for herself, but Keanu found it. Not because she showed him, but because she left it on the windowsill where the breeze kept trying to lift it. He read it quietly. And when he finished, he didn't say anything right away. He just looked at her and nodded. Here's what the letter said. I was once told to smile even when I was breaking. I was told silence made people uncomfortable. But now I know that silence can hold pain and strength and healing. The man who gave me his coat didn't rescue me. He reminded me that being seen doesn't mean being used. It means being understood. So if anyone reads this someday, know this. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to not have the words. But you are never alone. Keanu handed it back gently. That's the most powerful thing you've written, he said. But it's not for them, she replied. He nodded. Then it did its job. The next day on set, something unusual happened. A young actress, new to Hollywood, barely 22, approached Anna during lunch. She was nervous, holding a water bottle like it might spill. Hi, she said, voice trembling. I wanted to thank you. Anna blinked. For what? For the interview, and the coat, and the rain scene, and everything. Anna gave a small smile. I almost quit, the girl continued. 3 weeks ago, because I thought maybe you had to be perfect to matter here. But then I saw you. Just be human. I changed my mind. Anna didn't know what to say, so she hugged her, and that was enough. Later that night, Keanu found Anna sitting on a rooftop ledge, legs dangling over the side, wrapped in a blanket. He joined her without asking. They watched the city lights flicker. Below, Anna spoke first. They keep asking me to be something. What do you want to be? He asked. She looked at him, real. He smiled. You already are. She nudged his arm. You always say the right thing. That's because I say fewer things, he chuckled. A pause. Then Anna said quietly, You've helped me more than you know. Keanu looked at her with warmth. I didn't do anything big. You didn't have to, she said. You just stayed. And sometimes, that's the miracle. The wind picked up, brushing their hair gently. You ready for the final scene? Tomorrow, he asked. She nodded slowly. I think I finally know what it means now. What means? The line I couldn't connect with before, she said. The one my character says at the end. He waited. Anna closed her eyes and whispered, I thought breaking meant the end. But maybe it's just the place where light comes in. Keanu was silent for a long time. Then he said, Let's make it unforgettable. She opened her eyes and smiled. Together. Always. The light that came in the final day of filming arrived like a soft breath after a storm. Anna woke before sunrise. The sky outside her window was still half asleep, painted in shades of gray and early gold. She stood quietly by the glass, holding Keanu's coat in her arms. Not wearing it, just holding it. Like a memory, like a promise. Today they would film the last scene, the one her character had carried since page 1. The one where she would finally speak the line she couldn't understand until now. The line about breaking in light and becoming something more. On set, the air was thick with quiet respect. The crew moved slower, softer. It wasn't sadness. It was reverence. They all knew something had happened during these weeks, something deeper. That a movie. Anna stood in the center of the final scene. The space was empty around her, painted only with shadows and a single beam of stage light. Keanu stood off to the side, just out of frame where she could see him, but no one else would. The director walked up gently. You ready? Asked Ada. Nodded, double quotes, more than I've ever been. They rolled the camera. The silence stretched long. Anna stepped forward, her bare feet brushing the stage floor. No music, no noise, just the sound of her breath, and then she spoke. Not loud, not perfect, just real. I thought breaking meant the end, she whispered. But maybe it's just the place where light comes in. A long pause, a single tear. Not forced, not dramatic, just honest, and the screen faded to black when the director called cut. No one moved, no one clapped. Not because they weren't impressed, but because something sacred had just happened. Keanu was the first to step forward. He didn't say anything. He just hugged her, not because she needed saving, but because she had saved something in herself. And that was worth honoring. The wrap party was small, quiet, by Anna's request. No flashing lights. No media, just laughter, food, music that didn't ask for attention. The studio gave speeches. Some crew cried, and someone played the rain scene on a projector in the background, but this time, it didn't hurt to watch. Anna stood beside Keanu, by the edge of the balcony, holding 2 glasses of sparkling water. It's strange, she said, how something so painful turned into something so freeing. Keanu nodded. That's the gift most people don't see. What gift? One hidden in the breaking? She looked at him. You always knew, didn't you? I knew you had it in you, he said softly. You just needed someone to stand beside you while you remembered. Anna looked down at her glass, then up at the stars. It's your coat, she whispered. He raised an eyebrow. What about it? It wasn't just a coat. It was a moment, a message, a mirror. Keanu smiled. Then keep it. She laughed. You're really never taking it back, are you? Nope. She paused. Then I guess I'll give you something in return. He tilted his head, curious. She pulled something from her purse. It was a small, folded page, letter. I wrote this the night before the last scene, she said. I wasn't sure I'd give it to you, but now I think I have to. Took it gently. Opened it. Dear Keanu, you stood beside me when the world turned cold. You wrapped me in something stronger than fabric. You never asked for anything, not praise, not attention, only truth. And because of you, I found mine again. Thank you for reminding me that breaking is not weakness. It's the doorway to becoming. With quiet strength, Keanu folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his coat pocket. You sure you want to give me that? He asked. Yes, she said, 'cause I'm not hiding anymore. They looked out at the city together. No cameras, no spotlights. Just 2 people who had walked through fire and rain and silence and come out whole. Months later, film was released. It wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. People didn't talk about special effects or box office numbers. They talked about the scene in the rain, the coat, quiet words, the truth behind the characters. It became a symbol of dignity, of kindness, of what it meant to be human in a world too quick to judge. Young actors began quoting the line, I thought breaking meant the end. But maybe it's just the place where light comes in. People wore buttons with those words. Teachers printed them on classroom walls. Therapists read them to patients. Parents whispered them to their children, and through it all, Anna didn't try to be perfect anymore. She simply tried to be honest, because that was enough. One evening, during a private event for the film's anniversary, Anna stood on stage. Room was dim, warm. She looked at the crowd, then looked at Keanu, sitting in the front row, quietly nodding. A long time ago, she began, my dress tore in public, and everyone stared. But one man didn't. He took off his coat and handed it to me, not because I asked, but because he saw me. She paused. That coat became the start of something. Not a love story, not a movie, something harder, something better, healing. She stepped down from the stage and walked to Keanu. Thank you, she said. He smiled. You're welcome. Later that night, long after the event ended, Keanu walked home with the letter still folded in his coat pocket. He didn't need to reread it. He already knew every word by heart. He passed a young girl sitting alone on the curb, crying quietly into her sleeves. No one else noticed her? No one stopped. Keanu did. He knelt down beside her, gentle, quiet. "You okay?" he asked softly. She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "Bad day." Looked at her for a moment. Then, without saying anything, Elsie slipped off his coat and draped it around her shoulders. Her eyes widened. "Why?" she whispered. He gave a small smile. "Because sometimes that's all someone needs." And as he walked away into the night, coatless once again, he knew the light always comes in through the cracks. You just have to be brave enough to let it.